so that's not the end of the world, but he didn't respond in the 30 days I asked him to respond. The second issue is on August 20th, which is not 30 days yet. We're 6 days away from that becoming 30 days, so Bernie had moved his RV down to where this shoreline alteration issue is. And now we have the issue of a sewer system. And anybody that, when a parcel becomes a developed parcel, which is determined by the property tax assessor, not the township, when you have an RV or a building or a house or whatever, is whatever the county does determines that land. When the land changes from raw, naked, unimproved, no buildings land to what's called improved land. So when the land transfers from unimproved to improved. So under the county tax program, simply putting an RV on a parcel makes that an improved parcel. According to the Pollution Control Agency, once you have an improved parcel, then the issue of having a sewer system comes up. It doesn't have to be a septic tank and drain field. It could be a porta potty, those plastic. It can be an outhouse. It can be a composting toilet. There's any number of valid things. I'm using the word sewer system in its broadest possible interpretation of something how to handle human waste in any way, shape, or form whatsoever.
What about the holding tank on the said RV?
Right, and that's the one thing, because the problem with that is people bring an RV, despite good intentions, people bring an RV on their property and that tank is of a limited size and it needs to be driven off the property periodically to go to a transfer station to have it pumped. Well, this is exactly the contents of the letter, and I just explained all of this to Bernie on August 20th, that I simply wanted to know from him, is there facilities in the RV or is there not? If there's facilities in the RV, then he needs to know that he needs to periodically drive the RV off the property to have it pumped at a transfer station, depending on the frequency of use. There's no exact number. Once a day, once a week, once a month, once a year. That's part of the permitting process. We have a form that a person signs, and then they, so if it ever does become a problem, at least we have a signed sheet of paper that they are signing that they're aware of the law and they're promising to do that. If there is no toilet facility in there, then we need to have a sewer system permit. So I didn't accuse him of anything. I didn't charge him with anything. I didn't do it. All I simply, basically, besides a whole mountain of paper to explain all of this long, complicated stuff, I simply asked Bernie, is there toilet facilities in the RV or not, yes or no? And then depending on his answer, then we'll either go this path, that path, or some other path. So that's the second issue, which, like I say, the 30 days, the clock is still ticking, so.
I guess I didn't realize it was our job to police whether people pull their RVs off and empty this.
Well, they would have a copy of the receipt.
Right, I'm just saying, I didn't realize that was.
You technically don't have to. They do have things that are on carts that you can pull them up, hook up your hose, fill that up, and you take that with you. It's a container, it's 25, 30 gallons.
I got one, just make it easy to
Since
load
all
it up
this
and take
is
it with you.
regarded to me, is there a chance that I could talk here, or you got any more to say?
Rather than
about
just trying to fill in, I'm kind of done, yeah, so.
Okay.
I mean, just to answer, Chris is really kind of out of order, but, it's not just as cut and dry on this, and it's got to be A, B, or C, or D. The process is to get together with the landowner,
No, I understand.
find out what the options are, what their plan is. First I even need to know if there's even anything in there, which I still don't know yet. Once I know that, then I know, do I go this way, that way? If I knew what you were just talking about.
So I don't
didn't
interrupt the
know,
meeting.
Then we could do something about that.
Can I have the floor? Because Grace, Bob, come on.
Okay, so what?
Can I speak?
Yes, go ahead.
All right, so my name's Bernie Palmer. Nice to meet everybody here. We came together because of this stuff that Bob's talking about here, and I came here for a number of reasons, and some of them are personal, and because I don't want to have any problems with the community. I wish that maybe you guys would have asked me to attend a meeting at some other point, and shame on me for not doing it, but I don't know where you guys stand with the Constitution, Bill of Rights, property owning Bill of Rights and things like that. If you've read them, or if you have read them, if you totally understand everything, because I've read them, but I don't totally understand it. But I do believe in the Constitution, and those are, our forefathers were pretty good at writing down some basic rules that we need to follow, but I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but about every 70 years our Constitution gets changed a little bit because our country goes into bankruptcy. It's been in bankruptcy 4 times. I'm not going to get into all that, but I could go on forever about it. Bob and I have a history going back, and the first time we met was I have a cabin down here on 25, and I own some property up north here, which we're talking about. And, you know, Bob, first off, I want to tell you right now, you know, I don't hate you, and if I seen you alongside the road stranded, I'd pick you up and give you a ride anywhere. You piss me off a little bit, but that's about it. So I don't have hard feelings towards you. You are doing your job, maybe a little bit too good, and I think the board might have overlooked a few things when they made their decision to spend the taxpayers' money hiring a lawyer and dragging me into a Zoom hearing, court hearing. And I'll explain a little bit of that to you too, because that was a real interesting thing. Number one, I'll just address this septic tank thing. Let me just tell you about these Zoom hearings, okay? You know, I always thought that when you had court things, you go into a courtroom and stuff, and you know, have a jury, your peers, and you look the judge in the eye and things like that. I don't know if you've ever had one of these Zoom hearings, but you call in on a telephone. And so I did that. I called in at 7, my meeting was at 9 o'clock. I called in at 7:32. I'm panicking because I don't go anywhere late, and I don't want to, you know, piss off a judge right out of the hole. So I can't get, you know, I call in and there's nobody there. And so I'm calling around, I call Pine County, which has got an answering service in Isani, left messages all over the place. And then when I got done, I said, I'll try it one more time, and I think it was about 13 after 9. And when I called in, the judge got on the phone, and I don't know if Bob overheard the conversation. The lawyers were there and stuff, but when I called in the 5th, 6th time, it says there are 7 people attending the meeting now, whereas before, when I called in, I got nothing. So I wasn't technically late, but anyways, the judge, Flanagan, and I'll just tell you this right now, I got no love for that jackass. He proceeds to just start chewing my ass, and I don't even get a word out edgewise. And when I did say something, the first thing he said to me was, I'm about ready to just award him summary judgment, which would have been a huge mistake on his. And secondly, he says, if you say another word, I'm going to hold you in contempt of court. And you know, I was a little upset about that, but I was smart enough to keep my mouth shut, and I got to listen to him for it seemed like hours, but it was only a few minutes to just chastise me, and he'd stop every once in a while just to see if I would talk. He did it 4 times. I was smart enough to keep my mouth shut, and when it was all done, he said, well, our hearing will be on December 26th. So December 26th comes along, and I didn't hire a lawyer. And here's the problem, guys. I think that you guys on the board have a really unforgiving job, you know, because you're always going to have somebody pissed at you for one thing or another. And you know what's really interesting, I learned about this board from Dave Royer, and I go, that's pretty unique and great, because, you know, when you come from the cities, you think of, you know, the county, the state, and the federal government. When you live in the country, you got a township, a county, the state, and the federal government. Which I think is wonderful, because when you live in the cities, we don't even know about that stuff. So I applaud you guys for having this thing and having the ability to talk. But you know, Bob and I, when we first met, was, you know, I was in violation. I put a septic system in at my cabin. When I bought the place, it had an outhouse, and it had a urinal that, you know, inside, you pissed and it went outside. So anyways, I put in a 500-gallon holding tank and a little drain field there thinking, well, that's better than what was there. Well, Bob apparently came over there when I wasn't there and said, well, that's not up to code and blah, blah, blah. I'm thinking, well, Jesus, better than what was there. But and then I had to tear it all out, perfectly good system, and put in a holding tank, and and I appreciate it.
You're talking about out on 25?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So I'm just giving a little history lesson that Bob and I have. So with that said, I had to tear that out, and I added a 1,500-gallon tank to it, and we've been fine. So me and Bob have had some discussions in the past. So I just wanted you to know, I don't hate you yet. But anyways,
Could I add one short thing?
sure.
I donated a Saturday, walking around your land, finding a spot,
You didn't donate nothing.
for where you wanted to put a cabin. You wanted to put a cabin, this was like 3 years ago, I don't know exactly, quite a while ago.
Objection.
Because you had a place you wanted to put your cabin, and you knew you needed to be 100 feet back from the river and 50 feet back from the road.
All right.
And that's hard to find such a spot on your property, so, I mean, we did at one time get along, so the feeling's mutual. I don't have anything against you either, Bernie, so.
So anyways, basically how I look at my project is as I'm landscaping it before I build there. And I want to just add this too, just so you guys know I'm not just totally stupid. I study stuff, and I could get some things wrong, but usually I don't talk unless I know them pretty right. I grew up in Royalton, Minnesota on the Mississippi and the Platte River. We bought a raw piece of land up there on the Mississippi and the Platte. My dad was on the Benton County Zoning Board. I know about that. I've owned river lots up there, developed those. I know about setback rules and all of that. I have a trailer up there, my brothers and I, on the Platte and the Mississippi for the last 35 years, and I've never had an issue at all. Now we fast forward up here. At one time I owned 3 properties I was paying property taxes on. Not that that matters, but I have a cabin down here, and I put that trailer up there because here's the deal. I don't like driving back and forth to use the bathroom or go to lunch and stuff like that. And I thought it'd be better to have a toilet out there, like a camper, someplace you can warm up and use as a toilet and stuff, rather than having 6 guys go in the woods, whatever. So I put my camper on the Hay Creek. And, Jan, a long time ago, gave me a book on the zoning regulations, and I read all that. And I'll challenge the board to read your own zoning regulations and show me one area that says you can't have a camper where I had it. Now let me tell you, Bajork Road is has an easement going through private property, which is mine. And I didn't know that I owned both sides of the road when I bought it. But one time the road grader must have knocked out the monument for the property marker on the southeast corner. I called and I talked to the surveyor of Pine County, and we had a long discussion, and I kind of told him a little bit about my situation with Bob here. And he says, you should get your land surveyed. He says, I think you're going to be surprised. And I'm like, well, what for? And besides that, I didn't care. I always thought everything west of the Bajork Road was mine, and the east side was whoever's. Well, unfortunate for somebody, unfortunately for me, I own both sides. There's some gravel there. But here's the deal. An easement through private property gives me the right to park in the easement area, and it gives me the right to take the material from it, not from the county road, of course, stuff like that. I know I can't park my vehicle on the road easement, or right away I should say, but I can park whatever I want underneath the power lines as long as it's not permanent. Where my trailer's sitting should not be an issue, because it's, and Bob, I thought you knew this, it's a self-contained unit that you can drive, and it's licensed. And there's no reason in hell, and here's the deal. I called the DNR down in St. Paul, and I talked to a gal that worked for them for 12 years. And we Google Earthed it, and she said to me, I don't see what the problem is, Bernie. And we were just about to hang up, and she says, well, hold on a minute. She goes, let me talk to my boss. He's a 37-year vet for the DNR. He gets on after talking to her a little bit and goes, well, we don't have a problem with that. I don't know what the problem is. Okay, so in the meantime, you know, I don't like using Bob's name because I don't want to seem like I'm picking on him, but I'm getting these letters and kind of these threats, I guess. And I did ignore them because I'm just like, you know, who gives a shit anyways? I'm on a dead-end road, and I don't even have a neighbor by me. So anyways, things keep building and building, and I did ignore Bob, and we did in fact go to court, and the judge didn't award you any money for taking me to court. It was a waste of the taxpayer dollars, your guys' dollars, my dollars. But the difference between my dollars and your guys' dollars is you're playing with monopoly money, and I'm using real money. And
Our money.
And the board carries a lot of weight, and they carry a big stick. And when you swing that stick, you got to be careful who you're hitting, and make sure that when you make a decision, you're affecting people's lives monetarily and other ways. And I ask you this: did any of you guys, before you made the decision, read the documentation that I got from Courier and Associates? Read my emails that I sent to them? Did you get the transcripts from the judge from the case? Did you read anything before you just voted against me? Because Bob presents his story. I'm not calling him a liar by any means, but I think if you read the fine print, like most things, you'll find that things are a little bit different. You didn't win anything in court. Matter of fact, when the judge was talking, it came up, you know, like, and you can barely hear on these Zoom things too. And I hear something about, well, he doesn't have current license plates. Well, you know what? I emailed over to Courier Associates copies of my license plate. I overlooked it. It's a new RV, and I didn't have them on there, frankly, because I forgot it, but I have it. And the judge also said, well, that's really not a premise for whatever action you guys are trying to take. So anyways, we get done with that. And before that, I should say, after I talked to the DNR the first time, somebody called the DNR, I'm assuming somebody here on the board, and 2 DNR officers go down there and look at my trailer. And by this time, I got these little notes and cameras all over the place, and the DNR officers come down to my cabin down here, and they say, knock, knock on the door, come on in. I turn around, and I seen a couple of guys like him standing there. I thought, holy crap, I'm in trouble. And, well, it turns to be 2 DNR officers. And they go, hey, Bernie, we knew you had another place here. We came to talk to you about your trailer. He goes, what's the problem with that? And I says, I don't know, if that maybe you guys were going to tell me. They go, we don't have a problem with it. That's good. I already talked to your headquarters. They have a problem with it neither. So again, I continued to ignore Bob, but in the meantime, these court things proceedings are coming up. And you know, I lost that case because, you know what, number one, I honor one guy and he's up there. So I don't call no judge honor. I didn't call him, and after the way he treated me the first time, I wasn't even going to give him the luxury of calling him judge. So I just called him Flanagan, and believe me, it pissed him off. So that didn't help me. Constitutionally, and if you look at the Property Owner Bill of Rights, and our rights, our God-given rights, number one, you have the right to make a living off your land.
Right.
You have the right to privacy. And I'm not going to recite the whole thing, but those are things to consider. But if you guys are going to make these types of decisions, I just ask that you read the fine print and look what's being there. Make sure that you're holding yourself to the constitutional values of this country, not the 4th Constitution, our original Constitution. Because that's how I live. But, you know, I would think that somebody might come down there and go, hey, Bernie, that's a pretty neat job you're doing there. I mean, I'm building fieldstone rock walls. I've done everything I can to curb any type of wash going into the creek. And when you think about the Scenic River Highway Act, or whatever it's called, it was made up by some, I forgot their names, Obastar or whatever, for the scenic St. Croix River. So I know about the scenic riverway and all that stuff. But you know what? This setback stuff, and I am gonna be asking for a variance to be a little closer to it. Because even though right now you can't even get your boots wet walking across that creek, there's times when the creek's high and it's pretty scenic and it's really neat to see, and I'd like to see that from my cabin. And you know, as far as the setback goes, you know, you do have your rules and your regulations, but you know, 100-foot setback from a stream that I've never seen a boat going down it ever, and I don't think I ever will. So I'm not affecting anybody's scenery. As far as my trailer being there, when you guys make decisions about stuff, you have to look at how is what this person, in my case Bernie, what is he doing that's affecting his neighbors? Because, you know, that's important. And I think it is too. Well, I don't know, I mean, less people got x-ray vision and can see through a half mile of woods or whatever. I'm not violating anything there. It just seems really kind of petty to keep chasing after this thing. You're wasting a lot of money. You didn't get awarded any money in the first place. And to be honest with you, the only reason that I even moved it this last time is because somebody called me and said they're seeking an injunction to have your trailer towed. And I was talking to some other people and they said, well, let's just move it and see if they tow it from that spot. So I moved it to where I'm gonna build my place. And then it turns out that's the problem too. Because I put it in approach and I don't have a septic system in a self-contained travel trailer with license plates. And I'm like, you know what? I'd rather be up here having a coffee or a donut with you guys and arguing and fighting about stupid shit like this. And I think the taxpayers' money could be better well spent chasing after somebody else that is not on the end of owns the last half mile of a dead end road without Jen, I don't know, to the north, what are you, 2 miles, and Royer's about a mile and a half to the south. And it seems like the only person I'm affected, and I don't like using names, is Bob. And you know, I went out, I tried to keep the peace too. Before we got to this point, I went out to Bob's. And you remember, Bob, I came out, as a matter of fact, I fixed your mower that day before I left.
No,
And-
I was working on more, you didn't fix it.
Okay.
Go ahead.
All right, I'll give you that. So anyways, I go, look, I don't want this to be the Hatfield McCoys. And he goes, well, Bernie, I gotta treat everybody the same. And I says, you know, you're right, Bob, you do have to treat everybody the same. But what you don't do is treat every situation the same, because every situation is different. And you know what, if we went in front of a jury, common sense just tells you, what's the problem here? I didn't spend $200,000 on this piece of property to have somebody tell me what I can and can't do on it. I mean, I agree that you can't just go plopping a home in there without getting a building permit, although one could argue, why do you need a permit? If you know what permit means, it means you're asking for permission. I'm not gonna ask, and I don't mean to offend you, I'm not gonna ask you guys for permission to build a doghouse, a shed, or anything else. And you know, this constant chasing me around for, and also, it goes from, first I was in easement, and that wouldn't stick. Then it was, I don't have the proper SSTs. Well, that wouldn't stick because I self-contained. So then what you guys won, you took me to court on a nuisance violation. A nuisance violation? So that's what you guys won on. Hey, I got the floor. So anyways, when it comes down to it, one of you guys could have a pop can laying in your yard, and somebody from the board could drive by and go, that's a nuisance. So I knew going into the case I wasn't gonna win. Now, I was gonna appeal that thing, because you know, if it comes to the point, and I don't want to, where I have to hire a lawyer, this Curry and Associates are gonna look like they're in kindergarten. And you know what? It won't be no Zoom hearing, because I wanna look for somebody right in the eyes when I talk to them, because you know, that's the problem with these Zoom hearings. I wanna see how they react. But I guarantee you, anybody with common sense would look at that situation and go, what are you chasing this around for? And I'm not trying to be demeaning to the board, but I think you guys should read the fine print. Bob, you should not take it personal. And let's figure, they're not to figure out, because here's the deal. The only reason I moved it from where it was to my building site was because I got talked into it because we were trying to fool you guys, see if you'd told the thing. Because other than that, I stand by principle. And I stand by right and wrong. There's no, it's gray, there's not gray, there's white, black, right, wrong. And I go by principle. And I don't, you know what? I'll fight this till the end. And it's a stupid thing to fight for, but you know what?
I'll help you.
This country has, each one of us are losing our rights every single day. And what's unique about this township board is you guys have the power, and that's what was given to us by the Constitution, to fight off the tyranny of government. And you know, it can start from the ground level. And when Jan, you know, and I forgot about this, when you came out to ask me to move my trailer because I parked it on the shoulder of the road, I did that to piss you off, Bob. And because it's not illegal to park on the shoulder of the road, but it was an inconvenience for the road grader, so it had to get moved, so I moved it back into that spot. But I don't care what a judge says. I don't care what you guys say. You have your God-given rights. I have my constitutional rights. You have the property owner bill of rights. And you know what? I think it's really petty to be chasing after Bernie Palmer for a nuisance violation and spending all of our money and wasting my time. And I'll leave it at that.
Amen.
Ask them how much they spent.
They spent 40 grand on me.
Ask them.
And you know, and if I could just say one more thing, I don't know Todd yet. I just met him. I don't know if I like him yet or not. Don't know. I think he's throwing it down too. But you know what? You have the right to argue vehemently with your government officials, and I don't like the fact that. And Bob, I thought that's where you're going with this. Is that if one person can make a decision about what's the proper conduct or not, I mean, right now, you could say, hey, you know what, I got a loud voice, you know, I mean, I can't help it, it's just I'm a loud guy and I like to talk once in a while too. You know, you could throw me out right now because I'm loud. But I agree that there has to be done, things have to be, you know, handled properly and within reason.
How many meetings have you been at where more than one person has a gavel in their hand?
I don't know what you mean by that, but I'm just, what I'm saying is I think squashing free speech, I have a problem with that, but I also understand where the board is because you got to get your business done for the people too. But you need, and here's what's funny, Jen, when you came out there, I said, Jen, I says, geez, I talked to the DNR, you guys sent the DNR after me, nobody's got a problem with it. Oh, and I forgot, I left out the soil and water guys. Those guys came out there, and I met with them, and I had to break the window on my truck, by the way, because my bulldog blocked the door on me while I was with these guys, and they didn't have no problem with anything. Matter of fact, there's a box on the bottom that says, do we need to have the DNR review this or something? It says no. And when I talked to Jeremy, when he was out there, they were great guys. They go, there's no, at first he walked down there because I was digging a pond there. And they kind of looked at it, you know, and like, I go, there's nothing wrong with that. It's legal. And he goes, yeah, it is. You're fine. And I knew it was because I study this stuff before I do stuff. I don't talk about stuff unless I have a pretty good idea what I'm talking about. And I'm not saying Bob doesn't know what he's talking about, but I'll tell you what, you show me in your zoning rules that says I can't have a camper where I have it at.
On a public road, no, you can't.
It's not on a public road.
It is too.
No, it's not. No, I mean, when I was on, not when you're talking, but when I had it parked by the creek.
Because Judge Flanagan determined it was a structure.
Well, I don't care what Judge Flanagan determines. You know, listen to me, here, hey, hold it now, wait a minute.
I'll just disregard with the judge just because I want to, you know, that sounds good.
Well, okay, well, you tell me, let me just ask you guys. Listen, you know, so let's do this. So if the judge is so right, do you guys think that a 24-foot RV, self-contained with license plates on it, is a permanent structure?
Yeah.
I think Bob.
No, I want to have a vote
It
here.
could be legal.
I think Bob should.
If you wanted to live in a fifth wheel, you can by law in the state of Minnesota.
I just want to know if,
Hey, come on.
hey, here's the deal.
Yeah.
So then,
Floor now.
So then why don't we make the whole RV industry illegal then?
I answer some of
Yeah,
those.
okay, let Bob answer what.
There's,
I'm just gonna say one thing real quick. The reason they had soil and water was not because they knew you had, it was a question, is it, or isn't it? That's why they were sent out. It wasn't because they were just to find out if it was or not, because he didn't know. That's why they were sent out.
Well, now, you know, but yet but you're still pursuing me now after, because I don't have a septic system, because I supposedly put in an approach. Well, how the hell am I supposed to access my land? And furthermore, what's the difference? I'm landscaping my lot before I build on it. And you know what? I'm not gonna ask you for permission for it. Not gonna do it, so that'll never happen, so get that straight.
Require.
I'll show you a camper
I
septic.
think you've got something, an approach doesn't require, if you have an approach, that doesn't require you to have a septic system.
Well, tell Bob that.
That's.
no, it's the RV. The thing about.
The RV's self-contained.
I have the floor now. I sat
Oh,
and
here
never
we go.
interrupted you but once, Bernie.
Here we go.
Here we go.
Here we go.
So, you know, there's any number of issues here. I like it, Tracy. For one, the Judge Flanagan determined the RV is a structure, defined, meets the definition of a structure. Section 5322, minimum structure set by the DNR, not by the township, on tributary streams, which is what Hay Creek is, 100 feet. All structures must be back 100 feet from Hay Creek. Set by the DNR, a rule that by us administering the DNR rules, the rule is set by the DNR, we have to follow or not. The same is with the shoreland alteration. Let me ask you one question. If I sent you a form for you to sign that says you will move your RV off of your property periodically or take an alternative method that's acceptable to the township in regard to human waste, would you sign that so we can file that? That you-
Absolutely not. It's none of
You
your
know that with
business.
everybody here with
Not,
that?
hey, I got the floor, it's my deal. No, because you know what? I'm not asking you for permission to go dump my sewage.
Well then,
And you know what? It's none of your business what I do on my property. And we're gonna get that straight, because you know what? I don't care what, and here, I have the floor.
no,
Here's,
but I do. I asked you a question, and all I wanted was an answer to the question. Actually, I have the floor. As far as the nuisance, we never charge you with any nuisance ever. Nuisance has nothing to do with nothing. The word never came up in any of the papers we ever sent.
read the paperwork.
I will, you know, I.
No, let them have the documentation. I'll give it to you. I'm gonna give you everything I got.
Them supervisors don't get no
Point of the board
documents.
is, I think,
None.
that
Zero.
we need to move on.
Right.
You know, I mean, 90% of what Bernie just talked about, I said before you even started, that case is behind us, that's done. You know, the old spot, the RV's moved, you know, we consider that case closed, and yet he wants to re-argue a case that even we're saying is closed. It has nothing to do with nothing. We're spending a half an hour on a case that's closed.
Well, you
What's
wasted my
open,
time.
And what you need to determine
Liars,
is,
go ahead.
as came from the county, and I'll read it one more time, given the extensive amount of grading was performed, he definitely should have a shoreland grading permit. Now, if we do not do anything with Bernie on the shoreland permit, either A, the county will take over our shoreland ordinance and they will administer it,
Good.
It'd be better.
and they won't give you an excuse on this one.
The DNR said straight out in the letter that Bob, they said, Bob, we really appreciate you being stricter than the state of Minnesota.
Yeah, we
We
are.
thank you for that. Well, I'm not thanking the DNR for that. I'm not thanking you for that, because your restrictions are ridiculous, because it isn't the
Right.
scenic St. Croix
Okay,
River.
But the problem is you blame me for them when we had public hearings, and the residents of the township, serving a democracy, voted point by point to have these rules.
What residents?
Several times.
I didn't get to vote.
I think
That was like 10 years ago, 20 years ago.
I was here and that's a lie.
There were open meetings that were well attended and.
That's a lie.
This is all these rules have been
That's
determined
a
by
lie.
the people of the township, not me.
So
You know,
what-
I take the blame for everything, but they're not my rules.
What exactly
Objection.
is wrong right now with this?
He moved over
property?
50
So they're
yards
gonna
of gravel.
release everybody's RV toilets now, or not?
I'll do this to prevent erosion into the river.
I object to the
There's a whole
allegation.
list of things.
They're policing
I sent
RV
the form.
toilets.
I do not have the form memorized. I can't
poop in
tell
there.
You don't
you.
even live in this
I
fucking.
don't think I have, you know, that's kind of,
Okay.
we just
What
want
is
to
physical
20
address?
years. You you
I
know,
was
but
told.
What's the
when you
difference
start
between the address?
scratching around closer than 100
Yeah.
feet to the river,
On everything.
the DNR's trigger is 100, or is 50 cubic yards of material, which isn't a lot of material.
Right.
If you're over 50, you need a permit, and it says on the permit,
You ever
you
get
need to
turned
submit
into
a plan to the township.
Can I, place your under arrest?
Okay, all
come
right,
on my
come on,
property
there's some
threatening
order.
Do you get the idea?
I get it, I just,
Quiet,
A lot of that
please.
stuff's
Yeah.
on there.
I get it just doesn't.
Can I ask one question on this?
From the county.
No, I get it, but
Quiet, please. Can we have some order, please?
just because it's law doesn't mean everybody.
Can I ask one question on this?
You know what I mean? I can still disagree.
Just
but-
because it's law doesn't mean it's
I'll wait
legal
till he's
too.
done talking.
I've given 3 of them in the
Yeah,
entire
as long
40
as he's
years
gone.
for a shoreline alteration permit. Everybody else complies with it, but he's already said quite clearly he's not gonna ask for permission. So, you know, you're in a quandary. In my opinion, you're giving up the zoning ordinance altogether by just willy-nilly saying, well, okay, you don't want to, that's good.
Hey Bob, can
I
I say
didn't say
something?
that.
No, I know you didn't,
Bob,
but
I
I
did
mean,
not
if
say
you would.
that.
I know you did not, I did not say that you.
Bob, can I ask you something, or say something, or ask you please?
One quick question,
Um,
and then you can finish up.
here's my question. I mean, you gotta, you know, the community's gotta ask, you know, how do we wanna live? You know, I don't mind not having neighbors. I live in Coon Rapids, but you know, this little thing has gotten to the point where it's so ridiculous, I've even questioned whether I wanna even build there at this point, but you know what, I'm not gonna let little things like that bother me. But you know, this, you know, you know, to be honest, that trailer, it means nothing to me. It really doesn't. What means to me, what bothers me is the direction of our country and the bureaucracy of government, and but matter of fact, the land and the minerals are owned by the people. And you know what? Every day we're I mean, you think about it. You know,
What's your question, Bernie, get to your question, please.
well, what's Bob gonna do next? Because, you know, you keep chasing this around, and I got better things to do.
Nothing to do with your answer.
You know, well,
I'll
no,
second
but you
that.
know what, here's the deal. I've heard things like, well, why don't he just bring it down to his, parking at his cabin when he's not using it? Why did I buy 160 acres of land? That's all I have up there is a trailer, a camping trailer that I used once. I've slept in it 3 times, and rather than going to the bathroom in the woods, because it is self-contained, you know, he wants me to get permission or to ask him tell him whether or not I dumped it. I'm not asking government and informing them nothing. It's not happening. And I don't mean any offense to the board. I'm done.
Bob, are you saying you're gonna go around policing everybody's RV toilets now and making sure they dump them? And make sure that everybody's up to code on dumping them and all this little nitpicky stuff? Cause what he's saying is true, and that's a good point right there. I mean, you threw all kinds of stuff at the guy. Half of it didn't stick and some of it did. But we need to, you know, you're down into the RV toilets and monitoring them now. You understand that, right? How are you gonna implement that? There's too many RVs here.
It's already been implemented. Ask Steve Nelson.
Are you gonna go around to everybody, my question is, are you gonna go around to every resident and do this?
Todd, let it go.
Todd,
Every one of them that I've become aware of, yeah.
Let it.
Okay, there you go. A lot of them here. There's a lot of RVs here.
Tracy,
Some toilets work, some don't.
So,
Thank you.
I discovered